Hi everyone, today I'd like to go through 5 questions that are most likely to come up in an interview for a data analyst. The first one is, what does the CRISP DM methodology for data mining entail? What does an analyst do in each step? So first of all, the CRISP DM stands for Cross-Industry Standard Process for Data Mining. It's a really structured, thorough, and validated approach to data mining with a process that includes exactly 6 phases, which I will explain now. The first one is I need to gain and understand the business goals and priorities so that the data mining project can be tailored accordingly. Secondly, I need to gather and understand my data. I need to check it for quality issues, for example, duplicate or missing information, and perform some exploration in the form of descriptive statistics like average calculations, median, minimum, or maximum calculations, and I will also start documenting my data and anything that I do to it. Thirdly, the data needs to be prepared to get it ready for the analysis. I need to select what I need, clean the data, and potentially also derive data that isn't in the data set, such as some average or aggregate calculations. Next one is the actual modeling, where I decide which combination of logic and algorithm is to be used for the so-called model. I will then apply this to my data set, and in the end, that will always be influenced by the goal of the project and followed by some testing. Fifth step is to evaluate and assess whether a model meets the business goal that was laid out in step 1. My validation would have been done by this point, and I'm now gathering feedback and will conduct a thorough review. And finally, once I feel that my model delivers the desired results, it can be deployed and implemented, but I still have to ensure that I monitor and document the outputs constantly. Now we go on to the second big question, where we would like you to explain what needs to be done before you can forecast time series. In other words, what does time series analysis involve? Very simple answer. Time series forecasting involves historical data which is used to predict future values. So without any historical values, we cannot predict the future using a time series forecast. Thirdly, I'd like to talk about the principles of data ethics, as well as what companies or organizations could do to uphold these principles. First big principle, there are 4 in total. The first one is privacy. This means that individuals must be in control of their personal data, whereby companies have to get their consent before collecting and sharing private information. Secondly, transparency. So individuals need to know what kind of data a company collects and shares, meaning companies need to be really transparent about how data is handled and processed internally as well as externally. Accountability is the third one, whereby organizations are responsible for the data they collect and share, which they have to safeguard and held accountable for if that's not the case. And finally, equality, meaning organizations must not discriminate any individuals or groups when handling their data, which can also lead to human bias. Now, our fourth big question is, or point to discuss, imagine you're an analyst within a financial services company and you have some concerns about bias in the way a predictive model was measured. How would you raise your concerns with your manager? And we'd also like to make some suggestions on how to avoid measurement bias in the future. So in order to address this with my manager, I would say that after monitoring the results of the set model and by validating them, I found some inconsistencies with the expected outcomes. I'll present these findings with some appropriate visuals. And my suggestions to avoid this in the future would be to ensure that there are multiple measuring devices in place. Also make sure that the people that validated the model have got adequate and similar level of experience, and that we should bump up and increase the reviews of the model outputs. And now we get on to our final big question, where we'd like to explain the difference between regression, and classification models in predictive analysis. When would we use one of these models over the other? So let's start with the regression models. They measure the relationship between quantitative variables in order to create some predictions, basically showing how one variable may affect another one. A classic example would be is to predict whether sales of ice cream increases with rising temperatures in the summer months. As opposed to regression models, there are then the classification models. They are used to predict what category an entity will fall into based on certain criteria. For example, you have an online store that classifies active and inactive customers, whereby the active customers must have made at least 4 purchases within a year. If they made fewer purchases, they are classified as inactive. And this is the end of our little session. If you do have any questions, then please let me know. Thank you. Bye bye.